We start today the new Masechta, Masechtas Taanis, the Masechta about fasts. In fact, that's a bit of a misnomer. Masechtas Taanis is not just about fast days. It is, in many ways, about rain, about the godless of rain. The need for that rain is the giver of life, and rain or water is a metaphor for the spiritual life of Judaism, i.e. that water, mayim, is always medama to Torah. Water is always compared to Torah, and the Torah is compared to water. And this Masechta is going to be busy with that a lot. But it starts off with what we know. As we know, in the second bracha of Shemona Esrei, we say, Mashiv Ruach Umayrid HaGoshen, or Mashiv Ruach Umayrid HaGeshen. Depends on which way you say it. Rav Moshe Feinstein says you're supposed to say Goshem. Rav Moshe Sternbach says you should say Geshem. Either way, whatever you do, it's fine. We say that, and that is tied to the Musaf of Shmini Atzeres. That's when we begin to say Mashiv Ruach Umayrid HaGoshen, and we say it until the Musaf of the first day of Pesach. Masha'ekein, the same Talmud Moto Levracha, in the bracha of Barech Aleinu, as Shana Azais begins either on December 4th or December 5th, is tied to the solar calendar. The Gemara obviously is going to talk all about this. The one other major difference, which the Gemara is going to talk about, is the one that we say by Atakiba, Mashiv Ruach Umayrid HaGoshem, is not a tefillah in us asking for rain. It is a praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the rain giver. The same Talmud Moto Levracha in this sense that we start saying in December, in the bracha of Barech Aleinu, that is already a bakasha. It's us asking for rain. Having now given this introduction, we begin with the Mashiv Ruach Umayrid HaGoshem. The last thing to note is that the Gemara does not talk about Moirid Hatol, which if you daven Nusach Svar, you know that in the summertime from Pesach until Shmini Atzeres, we say Moirid Hatol. In Ashkenaz, as in BJC, they don't say anything at all. And they're not saying anything at all is exactly how the Gemara had it. We, taking on Chassidish and Minhagim, Daven Nusach Svar would say Moirid Hatol. But that's not coming up in this Gemara. In this Gemara, we're dealing with the rain of Mashiv Ruach Umayrid HaGoshem. Says the Mishnah, from at what point do we start mentioning the power of rain? Mashiv Ruach Umayrid HaGoshem. Rabbi Eliezer Oimel Miyontav Rishon Shel Chag, from the first day of Sukkot. Rabbi Yeshua Oimel, like the way we hold, Miyontav Achron Shel Chag, meaning Shmini Atzeres. Amalai, of course, the Gemara is going to talk all of that. First, the Mishnah is going to deal with it. Amalai, Rabbi Yeshua, since rain, if it falls on Sukkot, is nothing but a sign, a bad sign, because it will make it impossible and exempt you from sitting in the sukkah. Why are you remembering it on Sukkot? Why are you starting the remembrance, according to you, Rabbi Eliezer, that starts saying Mashiv Ruach Umayrid HaGoshem on the first day of Sukkot? Why are you doing that? Amalai Rabbi Eliezer comes to Rabbi Eliezer and he says, Af ani lo yamati lisho. I am not telling you to ask, to have a bakosha, to request rain by saying Mashiv Ruach, giving the dew, Umayrid HaGoshem, and the rain. Ella lahaskia Mashiv Ruach Umayrid HaGoshem ba'oinosai. He makes the wind blow and he makes the rain fall which is a praise of Hashem for bringing rain in its season. In its season, when is this rainy season? After Sukkot, which is the reason why we start on Shmini Atzeres. So, Amalai, Rabbi Yeshua said, if that's your reason, Rabbi Eliezer, that it's not a bakosha, it's not a request for rain, it's merely a praise that Hashem brings the rain in its right time. And so I started already at the beginning of Sukkot, because after Sukkot begins the rainy season. If it's only a praise, then we should remember it all year long, even in the summer. We should always be saying, and everybody agrees it's only a wintertime saying. So number one, the Mishnah rules. We do not request rain except close to the rainy season, i.e. on Shmini Atzeres. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, the one who goes to daven for the Amid, the Shliach Tzibur, on the Yontiv of Shmini Atzeres, ha'achrein maskir, the Musif, in Musif, he mentions the power of rain, which is what we do today. Harishain einoi maskir, the first one, the Baal Shachris, does not mention the power of rain. It turns out that Rabbi Yehuda is actually arguing on Rabbi Yeshua before, because Rabbi Yeshua simply said that on Shmini Atzeres we should start saying Masha Baruch HaMayir HaGoshen. It was mashed from him that we could say it at Shachris. In fact, we could start saying it even at Ma'ariv the night before, when Shmini Atzeres starts after Hoshana Rabbah, the last day of Sukkot. Rabbi Yehuda is the one that says, no, we wait until Musaf. And of course, the Gemara is going to tackle this. Okay, now, we actually know one of the reasons, because we just learned it at the end of the Masechta we just finished, Masechtas Rosh Hashanah, which is that people don't show up to shul until Musaf. If you remember, that's why we blow the shofar. One of the reasons why we blow the shofar at Musaf and not Shachris is because in a multitude is the Hadorah, is the splendor of the Melech, of the king. Same thing over here. By Ma'ariv, a lot of people skip out on Ma'ariv. Shachris, people get delayed from coming. By the time they get to Musaf, the shul is full. So that's the time to go ahead and switch to Masha Baruch HaMayir HaGoshen. Oh, that's what Rabbi Yehuda seems to be saying. Very good. We're now on 2A2. B, Beis Amid Aleph, number 2 in the article. Vayayim Rishon, B'yontav Rishon Shel Pesach, and on the first day of Pesach, Rishon Maskir, the Baal Shachris continues to say, Masha Baruch HaMayir HaGoshen. Ha'achra, the Baal Musaf, the one who's leading the services for Musaf, he's the one that stops saying Masha Baruch HaMayir HaGoshen, Einai Maskir. He does not mention the power of rain. Okay? So, the first question is the one that's always asked. When a Mishnah opens up with these words, from when do we remember to remember the power of rain? The first question is what do you mean from when? Who even says that we have a chiyuv, we have an obligation to remember the power of rain? So that's the first Gemara, the Gemara's kasha. Tani heichakai, what does our Tana mean? Did Tani may Avasai? From when? How do you even know the obligation exists? So that you could ask the second question, from when does the obligation exist? First, I have to know that there is an obligation. So says the Gemara, Tana Hasam Katani. The Tana is referring to the Mishnah in Brachis, in Masechtas Brachis, the first Masechta in Shas, Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph. Over there it says, Maskir and Geburis Kishama B'tchiyas HaMeisim. We mentioned the power of rain in the bracha, in the second bracha, which is the bracha about the resurrection of the dead, Chiyas HaMesim. And we ask for rain in the bracha of the years, which is Barei Chaleinu et Shana Azois. Bless us for in this year. V'havdolah, and we do chaynet, we do ata chaynantanu b'chaynen adoas. In the bracha of chaynen adoas, because it takes wisdom to recognize the separation between Shabbos and the weekdays. That what Shabbos represents versus what the weekdays represent. V'ketani, and in reference to that Mishnah, our Tana over here, Masechtas Taanis, says, given that we have to remember in the bracha of Tchiyas HaMesim, of resurrection of the dead, Hashem, we remember according to the Mishnah and brachas, the male over here, I say, okay, and when do we have to start it? So obviously the Gemara asks the obvious question. So let the Tana teach over there in Zeroyim, in Masechtas Brachas, Ma'asher of the Shabbat Adhocha. Why does it wait over here till Masech Seder Moyed, until the order of Moyed to begin teaching about the power of rain to our Masechta over here? Okay, says the Gemara, you're right. Good question. So I'll give you another reason. What's really going on over here? Ella, Tana me Rosh Hashanah Solik. The Tana's point of departure is a Mishneh Rosh Hashanah, which is the Masechta that we learned right before Taanis. Okay, Masechta is a thing, and that's in Daf Tez Zayin Amid Aleph 16a. Titnan, because we learned Ubechag Niduyin Alamayin. On Sukkot, people are judged on the rain that's going to fall in the upcoming year. And since it was taught in the Mishnah on Sukkot, the people are judged regarding the water, on the rain that they're going to receive. Tana, our Mishnah then turns around and says, when do we begin to mention the power of rain? So that's the connection from the Mishnah we just finished learning in the Masechtas Rosh Hashanah. We turn over here to the first Mishnah in Taanis and said, by the way, in that discussion, when do we begin? When is the proper day? Is it the first day of Sukkot? Or in fact, is it Shmini Atzeres? So on this, break the Gemara. Me'ema, but let the Mishnah listening, let the Mishnah say, Me'ema say maskirin ala geshamim. When do we begin to mention rain? My givuras geshamim. What's this means, power of rain? Just say, when do we remember about rain? What's shot in power of rain? Mashi beruach u'moirid agoshen. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, b'pnei sheyorden b'gevura. Moirid agoshen, because the rain descends with the power of Hashem. Shenema oise gedolos arein chekel, v'niflois arein mispah. Who performs great deeds, ein cheker, beyond comprehension, v'niflois, and wonders, arein mispah, beyond count. V'ksiv, and it says in the next pasuk, hanoisein motor al pnei haaretz v'sholayach mayim al pnei chutzos. Who gives rain upon the face of the land and sends waters upon the face of the outskirts. My mashma, where do you see? Fine, I see about rain. Where do you see from here gevura, power? Rabbi Bashila, says Rabbi Bashila, the words "ein chekek" and beyond comprehension is a gezeira shava. It's a connection to Bria to Shaloyla. Now, it doesn't mean it's a real gezeira shava that came from Moshe Sinai. Meaning, it's an allegorical connection that we can connect one to the other, because there's no halacha in the sense of this. It's a connection. Ksiv halacha, it says by Yos. who performs great deeds beyond comprehension. Viksiv Hosam, and it says over there, regarding the Bria Soil of the creation, Yeshaya Nobi, Isaiah the Nobi said as follows. Halo Yadato, Im Lo Shamate, Lekei Oilam Hashem, Boirek Soy Saretz, Lo Yeya, Lo Yiga, and Chekilis Funosoi. Have you not heard? The God of the world, Hashem, the creator of the ends of the earth, does not become weary or become tired. 283. 283. Bezabad Aleph 283. The use of the word comprehension creates a connection between rain and the creation of the world. Vikisiv, and it says, Meichin Horim B'koichai Neza V'Gevura, who sets mountains with his strength, who's girded with power, who's good with. You see that the virtue of the analogy between rain and the creation, power is also associated with rain. Therefore, we use the word gevuras geshamim, the power of rain. So now the Gemara says, fine. Oh, we know betfilah. Where do I know that rain has to be mentioned in Shemona Esrei, in the davening? The Tanya, because we learned to love Hashem your God and to serve Him with all your heart. Ezu avoida shehi b'lei. Which avodah of God, the Rabbi Nisham, is performed with the heart. We say this is prayer, because prayer without intent, without machshava, is merely geplapel to words. More than that, the power of speech is the thing that most separates us from the animal kingdom. That power of speech is what we're using. Our speech and our intellect together go up and to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with prayer. The Ksiv Basrei, and it says right after that, and I will provide rain from you for your land in its proper time, the early and late rains. So the pasuk in V'Hayarim Shemaya, which is part of the Kriya Shema, juxtapositions tefillah, the avodah shebelei, the service of the heart, with rain. Amar Rav Yochanan shloisham maptachos biyodei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There are 3 keys in the hands of the Holy One, and these 3 keys, while sometimes He gives out to the malachim to handle, are in the purview of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, are under the complete auspices of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They are not entrusted to an agent. They are under from the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Elohim, Mafteach Shel Kishamim, the key of rain, Umafteach Shel Chayil, the key of childbirth. In fact, it means the key of conceiving. Umafteach Shel Tchias HaMeisim, and the key for Tchias HaMeisim, the revival of the dead. Mafteach Shel Kishamim, the key of rain, the Ksiv, Yiftach Hashem l'chos oitzrei atoy ves hashamayim. L'osreis mitar atzchem bi'itoy. Hashem will open for you His good storehouse, to heaven, to provide rain for your lands in its season. The pasuk clearly says that it is Hashem that was the provider of rain. Mafteach shel chaya minayin. How do we know about the key to conception? The Ksiv, Vayizkor Elokim es Rochel, this last week's parasha. Yesterday we said this, claimed this. Vayizkor Elokim es Rochel, and Hashem remembered Rochel, Vayishma. We're now on Beis and Beis, 2b1. Vayishma Oleo Elokim, Vayiftach es Rachmo. And Hashem hearkened to her, and He opened up her womb. So you see, it's Hashem Himself that's the one that opens up the womb with regard to conceiving. Where do we know that Hashem has the key for Tchias HaMeisim? And you will recognize that I am Hashem when I open your graves. Very good. So it's now, B'maravo Amri, Af mifateach shel parnosa. The key of parnosa, of substance that the Eibishter gives us our worry, our parnosa is not entrusted to an agent, but he himself handles it. Iksiv, poisech es yodecho umaspia l'chol chayrotza. You, Hashem, open up your hands and satisfies the desire of every living thing. The Rav Yochanan, who did not mention the key for parnasa, my tamaloi choshev law. Why doesn't he account for the key of parnasa? Amalach gishamim hayu parnasa. In gishamim, in rain, is substance, is parnasa. Without rain, most of our jobs would not exist. Rabbi Eliezer, man, the Mishnah said, Yom Tov Rishon Shel Chag, we start saying Masha Baruch Habayim Geshem from the first day of Yom Tov. Okay? So now, the Gemara wants to know when Rabbi Eliezer says on the first day of Yom Tov, you say Masha Baruch Habayim Geshem. Does it mean that you start on Ma'ariv when Yom Tov starts, or do you say it on Chakras, or do you say it by Musaf? Ibayalu. The Talmidim asked, Rabbi Eliezer, when does Rabbi Eliezer require that at the first day of Sukkot you should start saying Masha Baruch Habayim Geshem? Min lulav gamala. Does he learn it from the mitzvah of lulav? Oy minisuch hamayim gamala. Or from the pouring of the water libations. All year long, there's nisuch hayayin, the pouring of wine that comes along with kabbanis. On Sukkot, we add nisuch hamayim. Besides nisuch hayayin, is nisuch hamayim. They poured water. If you remember from the previous percents that we learned, we talked about it because they're judged on Sukkot regarding rain. So Memela, they poured the water as well. Or the Zera Kodesh's word that on Rosh Hashanah we do tashlich and we throw away. So we throw all our averis into the sea. Then on Yom Kippur we make a tshuva me'ahava, a tshuva out of love. So what happens to our averis? Our averis nases zuchiyos. Our averis become merits. Well, now we want it back. So then the averis we threw away now became merits. I want them back. So we do nisuch hamayim on Sukkot. We pour the water to get our averis back, which are now zuchiyos. That's the Chassidish Shabbat. But the Pashup shot is because it's the time of Nidan ala Geshomim that they judged on Nidan ala Mayim, they judged on water, so we pour the water. Now, the thing about the pouring of the water and even the pouring of the yayin, we learn out the Masechtas Menachos in Zavaitim that in fact, while of course the kabbanis have to be brought by day, in fact the nisuchs could be done. Lav dafka with the carbon can be done anytime during the 24-hour period. It could even be done at night. Masha Eikain, of course, lulav can only be done by day. So this is what it says over here. Mi lulav gamala. If we're going to learn it out of lulav, we're now on 2B1. On 2B1 in the right column. Ma lulav b'yoim, just as the mitzvah of lulav begins in the daytime. It's a daytime mitzvah, right? And you shall take the 4 minim, the arba minim, lulav esekadas ra'roba on the first day. So haskara b'yoim, so to the mention of rain, Masha Baruch Habayim should be by day. Or perhaps he derives it from the misuch hamayim because that's actual water. The lulav esekadas ra'roba benefit from water because without water they can't grow, but they're taken by day. But the actual nisuch hamayim can even be done at night, like we just said. It's not tied to the carbon itself, right? It's as Gemara here says, ma nisuch hamayim b'orta, just like the water libation is allowed to be done at night, right? The omamar, because it says over there regarding the musaf offerings on Yom Tov, u'minchosam b'niskeihem, their meal offerings and their wine libations, meaning that they're two separate things. Afilu b'layla apaskara miurta, which means that the libations are allowed to be brought, the pourings are allowed to be done at night, and therefore even the mention of Kaburis Keshavim can be done at night. So what is it? Do we go after Lulav and be masking Keshavim on the morning of Sukkot, or no, do we start at night like the Nisa Chamayim is Shaykh at night? Toshmaz of the Gemara, bring you a riot. Amar Rabbavu, says Rabbavu, Loi love the Rabbi Eliezer Elam Lulav. Rabbi Eliezer learns it only out of Lulav, not from the Nisa Chamayim, from the wine libations. Since the mitzvah Lulav is by day, so the masking it's of the Mashik Ruchmarinat Goshem is also by day. Those, some people say Rabbi Vu got it as a tradition from his Rabbeim. He got it from a Baraisa. Mahi, what's the Baraisa? The Tanya, we learned in a Baraisa, when do we mention rain? Rabbi Eliezer said, from the time that the lulav is taken, the first day of Sukkot. Rabbi Yeshua Imel Mishas Hanachosoi. From when the lulav is put down. When is the lulav put down? On the 8th day, on Shmini Atzeres, when we don't take the lulav anymore. So therefore, the Brisa ties it to the lulav, and therefore Rabbi Eliezer holds that you start being maskir Geshomim, maskir Gevuras Geshomim by daytime. Rabbi Eliezer says, Rabbi Eliezer, since these 4 minim, Hadas, and Arovis, are taken on Sukkahs, Einon Bayan El Laratzai Salamayim. They serve, the taking of the Lulav and Esrei serves only to entreat Hashem to give a favorable judgment regarding the rain that's coming up. Because by holding them, you say, just as is these 4 meaning, these 4 species that I'm holding in my hand cannot grow without water, so to the world, to be two. It's impossible for the world to exist without water. Amalei Rabbi Yeshua comes along. Rabbi Yeshua holds that you first stop being masking Geburis Geshamim on Shmini Atzeres. He says, but rain that falls on Sukkot is a klola, is a curse, because it means that you can't be mekayim the mitzvah of Sukkot. Amalei Rabbi Yishmael, I too say you don't ask for rain, Elalahaskir, to mention the power of rain. In the bracha of resurrection of the dead, we're not changing anything. We're not saying anything in Borei Choleinu. I'm not going ahead with saying and give Talmud bracha. Just as one mentions, we mention the resurrection of the dead all year long in the second bracha of Shemana Esrei. But the bottom line is, Tchias will only occur in its time, or as the Rambam writes, Ani Mamim Munishlema, she ate Tchias she always is Baruch Shmai. When there will be Tchias when the Eibusha decides upon it. The Eine, right? What do you call it? Kach Maskirim Gevuras Geshamim Kol Hashana. We mentioned the power of rain all year long. The Eine Yela Bismanon. Even though the rain is due only in its proper time after Sukkot. Lefichach Im Bola Haskir Kol Hashana Kula Maskir. One who wants to mention rain all year round is allowed to. Meaning, the chiyuv, the obligation to mention rain, is by Sukkot, according to Rabbi Eliezer. That's when it is right before the rainy season gets started. You start mentioning about rain. But if you feel like mentioning rain all year long, no problem, you're allowed to. Rabbi says no. From the time that one discontinues the request for asking for rain, i.e. Pesach, when the rainy season ends, Kaf Maskila Skoro. So too one discontinues the mentioning of the power of rain. In other words, when one stops saying in Borei Choleinu, as Shana Azois, the saying Talumot of the Bracha, we say it from December 4th or 5th till the first day of Pesach, and then we stop saying it. Says Rebbe, I want you to stop saying also at the beginning of Shemona Esrei. It's not a bakosha, it's not a request for rain, it's merely a remembrance of the power of rain that's in the hands of Hashem. Nonetheless, I want you to stop. So, and that's of course the way we hold. We don't say it anymore from that point on. That's Rebbe. So now, some more views on this. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseirah b'sheni b'chag humaski. In fact, you know when you start saying Mashruch Meirageshem, you start saying it not on the first day like Rabbi Eliezer, not on Shmini Atzeres like Rabbi Yeshua. No, I say Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseirah. I say you say it on the second day of Yom Tov, which for us in Chutz La'aretz would be the second day of the Yom Tov, and in the Eretz Yisrael would be the first day of Chol Hamoed. Rabbi Akiva says, in fact, I want you to say it on the sixth day of Yom Tov, the sixth day of Sukkot. You should start saying, so, obviously, we need to understand all of this. So, says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda, Mishum Rabbi Yeshua, Imam. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rabbi Yeshua, one who goes to lead the services with the Shliach Tzibor. On Shmini Atzeres, Ha'achrei Maskir, it's the Baal Musif that starts saying Mashem Ruach HaMayir Geshem or Goshem Harishain Ein Maskir. But the one of Shachris does not mention Mashem Ruach HaMayir Goshem. Mashen came by Pesach. Beyond of Rishon Shal Pesach on the first day of Pesach, Harisha Maskir. The one Baal Shachris continues to say Mashem Ruach HaMayir Goshem. The Baal Musif Ein Maskir. He's the one who stops saying Mashem Ruach HaMayir Goshem. No, the Gemara says, time out. Shapik Kamalei Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Eliezer answered very well to Rabbi Yeshua. It should be permitted to mention rain, even at times when it's inappropriate for the rain to fall. Just like the resurrection of the dead, Tchias HaMesim is mentioned all year long. Why? What's Rabbi Yeshua's response to that? Amalach Rabbi Yeshua. It's understandable why one mentions about the resurrection of the dead throughout the year, because every day potentially could be the day. Who's not to say that today is not the day? Which, by the way, tells you that Mashiach and Tchias HaMesim are two separate things. They're not mutually exclusive. Every day, the Kula Yom is Zinu. Every day, it's potentially the day of Tchias HaMesim. Elo Yesham, but rain, Kol Emas De'asim Inayu, is every day appropriate. V'yotznan, Yotza Nisim, V'yardu Yeshamim, if rain falls after the month of Nisan has ended, Simin Kloleim, it's a sign of a curse. Shenema, Haloi Kitzir Chitim Ayoim, is it not the wheat harvest today? If you call to Hashem and He will send thunder and rain, and you may know and see that your wickedness is great, because the rain is going to fall at exactly the wrong time. So, Gemara goes further. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseirah, B'sheni b'chag humaskir. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseirah said, on the second day of the Yom Tov humaskir, the first day of Chol Hamoed in Eretz Yisrael, the second day of Yom Tov Bayof, you begin to say maskir gevuris keshamim. You start remembering the power of rain. My time of the Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseirah, Yehuda ben Beseirah. What's the time? The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseirah. This is in Parshas Pinchas. In Parshas Pinchas, it brings down at the end of the parsha all the Yom Tovim, and between Shvi and the end of the year, and we laid it on Sukkot. We just did it. B'yom HaSheni, B'yom HaShlishi, B'yom HaRevi, B'yom HaChamishi. If you ever concentrated on the words, you'll notice that in the middle of all of it, even though most of the words are exactly the same on every single day, there are certain words that change. And the Gemara brings them down. Okay? On the second day, B'yom HaSheni, instead of saying B'niska, it says B'niskehem, and their libations, instead of the word that's usually used, which is V'niska, its libation. A mem is added v'niskayem to teach us something. V'nema b'shishi, and on the sixth day over there at the end, instead of saying v'niska, it says unisacheha. Instead of saying v'niska, unisacheha, an extra yud. So now I've got an extra yud and I've got an extra hey. V'nema b'shvi, and it says on the seventh day, in fact, we're now on 2b3, heading to the end of the Omid. It says, Kim mishpatam, according to their law, instead of what it's been saying till now, Kim mishpat. Thus it comes out, Hare, Mem, Yud, Mem. The extra letters are Mem, Yud, Mem. Hare, Kan, Mayim. What do the words Mem, Yud, Mem spell out? They spell out Mayim, water. Mikan Remez Lanisa Chamayim in Atayim. Here is a hidden spiritual allusion to the Nisa Chamayim, the water libation services performed on Sukkot. So says the Gemara, why does Rabbi Yehuda ben Seir say, based upon these extra letters that spell out the word Mayim, he chooses the first day that has the extra mem, i.e., the second day as the designated day to remember rain? Says the Gemara, the Chirivizale Bekra, since the pasuk is hiding, alludes to Nisachamaim, the water libation. The Sheni, who the reason being the first part, the first extra letter is on the second day. So therefore, he begins also on the second day to remember the maskir, Gevuris Keshavim, to remember the power of rain. Rabbi Akiva says, it's on the sixth day of the Yom Tov Sukkot that you begin to mention the power of rain. Shenema b'shishi unisacheho instead of b'niska. So b'shnei nesuchim akosim medaber. The pasuk is obviously talking about on the sixth day there are two libations. Chad nisuch hamayim v'chad nisuch hayayin. One is the libation of water and one is the libation of wine. So according to Rabbi Akiva, when does nisuch hamayim start? On the sixth day of Sukkot. If that's when it starts on the sixth day of Sukkot, that's the appropriate time to also remember the power of rain. But say that both libations are talking about wine. In other words, on the sixth day, we want you to pour a double portion of wine. Who said it's got to do with the water? Who said that water is alluded to by the additions of the mem and the yud and the mem that spell the word mayim with the extra words uniskehem instead of niska, and unisacheha, the extra yud, and on the seventh day kimishpatam, the extra mem yud mem spells out water mayim. We're now on Gimel Amid Aleph. Okay, we're on Gimel Amid Aleph, just doing the top part. So that's so he agrees with Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira that you learn it out of Mayim. So he says, look at Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. He holds like Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, name a kavase. On 3A1, he should agree with Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira that you should begin on the second day of Yom Tov of Sukkot. Just remember the rain because that's the start of the illusion. The spiritual illusion of Mayim, the extra letters, discover Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva holds, when does the Torah make a clear reference to an extra pouring, to an extra libation? By saying, unisacheha. Therefore, we begin the water libations on the sixth day, and therefore we remember that we do the Gevurah, the Maski, Gevuris Keshavim, the remembrance of the power of rain, also on the sixth day. So, even though Rabbi Akiva agrees with the idea of the extra letters spelling the word Mayim, he says it goes into effect on the last letter, because that's when the Torah is clear that there is an extra nisuch, an extra libation, i.e. the water. Very good. This is where we're stopping. We're up to Rabbi Nosson. Okay, we're up to Tanya Rav. You might notice this Masechta has a more esoteric feel to it. Get used to it. The Masechta Taanis is what has in it many of the stories that we all grew up with are in this Masechta. This Masechta has a very Hasidish tam to it because rain, water is medama to Torah, and Torah is medama to rain. So there's a great spiritual undertone to the idea of rain. And it's not to be taken, and that's why it's such a serious topic. And if it doesn't fall on time, we set up a set of fasts and etc. So that's what this Masechta is all about. And the first daf already has that feel for it. It's different than the other Masechtas.